So this is an article from The Intercept. Excuse me. Voters who oppose impeachment are worried about backlash. Excuse me. Voters who oppose impeachment are worried about backlash for Democrats. So last week, after revelation of a phone call with the Ukrainian president, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, announced a formal impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump. But many of the details are yet to be sorted out. Which of the 6 investigations into Trump currently being concluded by the House committees should impeachment include? And will impeachment proceedings, which are likely to pass the House but fail in the Republican-held Senate, end up backfiring on the Democrats? A poll was released Wednesday morning that found that other polls undercount for Democrats moving forward on an impeachment inquiry. It also revealed that a third of voters who oppose impeachment actually agree that Trump committed high crimes, but are concerned that it would hurt Democrats politically. This is something I agree with because I think an impeachment right now is a bad idea. And a majority of voters who support an impeachment inquiry said Democrats should proceed boldly and decisively, with all members voting within the next months. Overall, the poll suggested voters are roughly split, with 49% supporting impeachment and 43% opposing it. This dovetails with the recent Monmouth University and Quinnipiac polls, which show strengthening support for impeachment. But the YouGov poll shows that those opposed to impeachment may be concerned about political ramifications for the Democrats. Out of the 43% of voters who oppose impeachment, 65% believe that Trump did not commit high crimes and misdemeanors, and voters should decide in 2020 whether he stays in office, while 35% say Trump did commit high crimes and misdemeanors, but Democrats will hurt themselves politically if they proceed with impeachment. So again, you're getting all these people who are really concerned about the fact that, okay, if impeachment actually happens, if it goes forward, this can backfire on Democrats. And I think we talked about this in a show, but I also want to get your perspectives on this too, Paul, because here's where I'm looking at this. You have Nancy Pelosi, who was pressured by a lot of activist groups and, the media itself to call for impeachment of Trump. This is somebody who doesn't really like to fight that much. All right, she's really good at fundraising, and it feels like she was forced into this. Now, granted,
I don't know if I completely agree with that. It happened very quickly.
Yeah, it did.
There was a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of...
There is, but this is Nancy Pelosi we're talking about here. I mean, we even mentioned way back in the show that Democrats had the opportunity to call for impeachment. That was the Mullins clause, but they never acted on it. So,
and I don't think it's the pressure that put Nancy Pelosi up to it. I think you'd have to. It's very hard to discern her political motivations specifically, but for my money, my guess is this is the most topical and narrowest thing that doesn't also implicate Democrats along the way.
Yeah, but
right?
But there's another thing too. Yeah, the Democrats have the House, but then going forward, do you really expect the Republican Senate to go in favor of it? I mean, as far as it stands right now, at least until to some recent polling data, a lot of Trump supporters and Republican voters are in support of President Donald Trump being the nominee for the Republican primary. I mean, let's face it, I think he's going to win his primary unless something out of
they're not even
happens.
holding it. There are people that are wanting to run against him, but states are just shutting it down, which is an anti-democratic thing in and of itself. But strategically, realistically speaking, there's pretty much zero chance that any other person will head the Republican ticket in 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just unimaginable.
Yeah, and so looking at this is just how do we really expect something like this to happen in 2020? I mean, how can we really expect the Democrats to actually get a win in a Republican-held Senate? I mean, as far as it stands right now, Mitch McConnell doesn't look like he's fully invested into it. I mean, he might say one thing, but then do the exact opposite, and then the Democrats are just, boom, they lost everything. They wasted a lot of time and resources on a ridiculous impeachment.
Well, and we've talked about this a fair amount on the show, and we're not in universal agreement either, but I would say the position that I take is similar to some of the positions that it seems like people are taking in that YouGov poll. We probably shouldn't impeach right now. Strategically, it's not a great idea. And yeah, he definitely broke the law at high crimes and misdemeanors. Sure, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not a great idea. And actually, Bernie Sanders was making this argument up until fairly recently. He was saying, go back and look at when Bill Clinton was impeached. He came out of that with his highest approval rating ever, right? what ends up happening is if your impeachment fails, you give a massive, massive boost to the person you were trying to impeach. And given that there's a very little chance that this gets out of the Senate, that's a major worry. Now, the Bernie camp has flipped slightly. Their most recent fundraiser poses the question of impeachment, but actually does it in an interesting democratic way. They put the question to his supporters, to his financial backers.
Yeah.
And they basically say, do you want this to be a major issue for the campaign? Should this be something that we focus on?
Yeah.
And that's good.
You know, I'd have to say this about calling for this impeachment. It just reminds me a little bit of Russiagate. And it just seems like a lot of people want another Hail Mary to get rid of Trump, and it's not going to work. And look at the aftermath of Russiagate. 2.5 years, the media and the DNC establishment were just pushing this narrative that Russia somehow got involved. And as soon as the Mueller report got out, what did it reveal? Okay, some things, but was it the thing to end President Donald Trump? No, he walked away from it, and now he has ammunition to use it on the campaign trail. And if this impeachment fails, if it actually goes through and it fails in the Senate, he'll have more ammunition to use on the 2020 election cycle.
Well, to the people who are really firm believers in the Russiagate conspiracy, they would say that what the Mueller report and all of the Mueller testimonies prove is that all of what he was saying probably was true, but we just couldn't find any of it because Trump definitely obstructed all of the really bad stuff that we totally would have found. Totally, you guys, we totally would have found it. Totally.
No, that's not it at all. And I think it's a disaster. And yeah, go forward with the inquiry, but then how much do you really think Nancy Pelosi or the Democrats are going to really push forward to letting it go that far?
They're
into the
already
House and
bumbling
Senate?
it, right? They already don't have a cohesive message, right? All it takes is a little bit of, okay, but so you're cool then with the son of the vice president holding a position at a foreign energy company, because that's a tangential fact. It's not the crux of your impeachment inquiry, but you have to admit that fact is part of the general facts of the case. So what you're saying then, Democrats, is that should be cool. That obvious nepotism, that obvious corruption should be fine. And when posed with that question, Elizabeth Warren can't even answer. She has to check with her plans because nobody planned for that question.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I want to read us someone from the super chat, or not super chat, but from the live stream chat. Mark Ainge, the only way to beat Trump is at the polls. Bernie, Tulsi, 2020. You know, that's the only way you're going to have to defeat Trump. Because the thing is, even if there is a successful impeachment of President Donald Trump, do you want to know what you get stuck with? Mike Pence. Do you really want that guy in the White House? I mean, just to make things a little bit lighthearted, there was this show, The President Show, a while back, and there was a skit where the actor playing President Donald Trump was writing bills, and he gave the actor playing Mike Pence a job to do, and he said, and he had a meta moment, pause, look at the camera, and said, "Hey, if you guys think I'm crazy, this guy's nuts." I mean, that's not verbatim, but it was basically the gist of it. And the thing is, Mike Pence was really unpopular as he was ending his career as governor of the state of Indiana. If the people of Indiana get tired of you, you know you're a screwed up person. So is it really worth the risk of having Pence in office for however short time it is? I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.